It is often thought, especially in America, that any form of spirit, apart from maybe the holy angels, was always seen as evil by the Christian church. However, a detailed examination of history reveals that isn't quite true. In our previous Lore Hound videos, in fact, we saw how the medieval English Christians fully accepted the concept of King Arthur's Avalon, despite it being an island of magic and enchantresses tied closely to traditional Celtic nature spirits. We also saw, in the episode on real nymph sightings through history, how an 18th century English Anglican reverend saw a so-called river maiden and called her, in a sermon no less, a valuable guardian of nature, rather than anything evil or to be feared. The fact is, when you actually know what happened throughout Europe as Christianity spread, you'll see that a great deal of syncretism actually happened. That is, the mixing of old and new beliefs. Not only were many of the old nature spirits not demonized, but many of them continued to be honored, with either the blessing or a lack of condemnation by the mainstream churches. In parts of Eastern and Southern Europe, they are still honored to this day. In fact, despite the solidly dominant Christianity of those regions, nowadays, we'll look at the two most prominent so-called pagan spirits, which, nevertheless, were entirely integrated into these modern Christian nations. That is, the Domovoi, a house spirit, and the Vila Maidens, a nature spirit, using two definitive sources on the topic. Our main source texts are two definitive folklore tomes on Domovoi and Vila, The Bathhouse at Midnight, by W. F. Ryan, and Russian Folk Belief, by Linda J. Ivanitz. First off, the Domovoi, guardian of the household. The Domovoi is a powerful and benevolent house spirit, most common in Eastern Europe. According to our sources, the Domovoi is typically depicted as a small, elderly man with a long beard, often covered in animal fur or having a hairy body. They are considered the guardians of the home and its inhabitants, ensuring their well-being and prosperity. Not only would they protect from fires, property damage, or theft by raising the alarm or directly intervening, but they were thought to somehow increase productivity and income to any household they were given the power to act within. As this indicates, Domovoi are generally benevolent spirits if treated with respect, helping with household chores, caring for livestock, and protecting the house from evil spirits and intruders. However, if angered or neglected, they can become mischievous, causing disturbances and bad luck. Signs of a disgruntled Domovoi might include strange noises, misplaced items, a phenomenon similar to poltergeists, or minor accidents, which were interpreted as signs of the spirit's displeasure. This was seen, though, as a way of communicating something was wrong with the household or the family. However, rather than a threat or something meant to harm the family in any way. It could, for instance, warn of water damage somewhere unseen, or it might be a complaint that the house is filthy. Often, it was said too that the Domovoi would object to immoral or unethical behavior in the household, and would react angrily to such bad behavior with supernatural noises or flying objects, meant to correct it. To keep a Domovoi content, families would offer food, usually bread, milk, honey, or porridge, left out in the evenings. Some accounts indicate an annual ceremony of appreciation, a party to celebrate the Domovoi, was also performed. When moving to a new house, families might invite the Domovoi to come along to ensure their continued protection. Ivanitz notes that Domovoi were believed to communicate through sounds or movements, like knocking or whispering, and could give warnings through dreams or disturbances to alert the family to impending danger. A final, intriguing belief about the Domovoi is that they were not faceless spirits, but rather quite unique and distinct individuals, no different than us individual humans might be. They had personality traits, tendencies, and friendships or rivalries with other spirits nearby or neighboring. It was thought, for example, that other major spirits, like the East European Leshy, or forest spirit, or some evil demonic spirit in a house nearby would influence and affect it, causing it maybe to be happier and more helpful if near a friendly Leshy, or nervous, excitable, and unable to help as effectively as it could if surrounded by malevolent or evil spirits nearby. As noted by Ivanitz and Ryan, the Domovoi was never outright demonized by the mainstream churches of the region. Instead, there was a significant degree of syncretism, where old pagan beliefs were integrated into Christian practices. In the case of the Domovoi, the church often turned a blind eye to the veneration of these spirits, recognizing the deep cultural roots and the harmless nature of such practices. The Domovoi's role as a protector of the home and family aligned with the Christian values of familial piety and care, so I guess they saw no harm in it. Second example, the Vila, some especially enchanting nature spirits. The Vila are nature spirits found in South Slavic mythology, particularly among the Serbs, Croats, and Slovenes. The absolute definitive authority on Vila is Vuk Stefanović Karadžić, who first made a record of them in his famous works, Serbian Folk Songs and Serbian Folk Tales. From our sources, it can be seen that Vila are known as beautiful maidens with long, flowing hair, sometimes possessing wings. They are spirits of the sky, primarily, and are said to build castles on the clouds. From their roaming cloud headquarters, they traverse the skies, watching what happens in the world of men below. They could literally travel anywhere and offer their formidable magic, assistance, or opposition and certain death, in the case of a miscreant or villain, which explains why the ancients feared and respected them so much. They could literally be in any cloud. According to The Bathhouse at Midnight, Vilas were, and still are, revered and feared by people in Southern and Eastern Europe. People would leave offerings for Vilas to gain their favor and avoid their wrath, similar to the Domovoi. But outside, Vilas have always embodied the spirit of nature, as well as the connection between the living and spiritual world. Karadžic's comprehensive collection of South Slavic folk traditions highlights how Vilas would call down to people from their cloud headquarters, perched high in the sky. These cloud-bound abodes served as their mystical realms from which they observed the world below. Vilas communicated with humans through enchanting songs or ethereal voices carried by the wind. The folklore mentions their scathing anger calling down in booming rage from the clouds, due to someone desecrating or destroying nature, with phrases like, "Whoever desecrates my mountains, rivers, and forests, I will punish them," or "Respect nature, or you will feel my wrath." They were also noted to call down guidance or warnings to heroes, kings, or people they particularly loved, respected, and were watching. So, the whole land was under their constant surveillance. Given there are many who still believe in them down in some South European countries, could it be they are still watching? Vilas are associated with natural features such as mountains, forests, and rivers, and so are also often associated with water. However, they are not the same as the ancient Greek nymphs, exactly, as the folklore clearly states they are able to be drowned, unlike the nymphs and nixie water spirits of other cultures. It's true that they do love the natural waterways and protect them. However, unlike nymphs, who typically have limited control over a specific waterway, the Vila possess extensive authority over vast natural regions. They can swiftly and efficiently patrol these areas through cloud travel and wield considerable powers, such as controlling the weather. Depending on how they are treated by humans, they can bestow significant and tangible blessings or inflict devastating harm. In this way, they're closer to the elves of Germanic and Nordic folklore, with sweeping powers that cover a wide geographical range. Unlike the elves, however, where males and females exist, folklore makes no mention of male Vila, and all the existing accounts seem to indicate a powerful sense of sisterhood, surpassing even the elves. Despite the lack of males, however, or maybe more likely, because of it, the Vila are more well known than elves for taking human men as partners and bearing them children on an apparently not infrequent basis. Karadžić documents several stories where Vilas fall in love with mortal men, sometimes luring them into their enchanted realms. These unions, though fraught with challenges due to the nature of the Vilas' otherworldly existence, often resulted in children who inherited both human and supernatural traits. These offspring were believed to possess extraordinary abilities, such as heightened senses, magical prowess, or exceptional beauty. Prominent figures, such as heroes and warriors, frequently sought the counsel of the Vilas. Karadžic's folklore collection includes numerous tales where Vilas offered strategic advice, prophetic insights, and even magical assistance. If you think these ladies have limited power, you couldn't be more wrong. Not only were they not mere genteel ladies, though they were quite capable of that, but they were known as powerful warrior maidens, too. Often donning armor themselves and wielding magical weapons, they could also rain down all the fury of nature on your enemies, if they were fighting on your side. These are definitely ladies you want on your side. As far as their power goes, they might, for example, bestow a warrior with invincibility in battle, or with a horse that not only ran faster than any horse, but never grew tired, and could fight in battle fiercely enough to turn the tide of battle to victory. Not only did they have this power to give miraculous, real-world boons and physical, tangible magical gifts, but also, with seemingly psychic and prophetic ability, they could provide a hero with crucial information to overcome seemingly insurmountable challenges. Prediction comes naturally to them. These are powerful and invaluable protectors and guides, bridging the gap between the human and the supernatural world for Christian kings and heroes. And this, in a way that not only was not at all condemned by the church, but was in fact blessed by it. The following tale, a Christian king who married a Vila and had a famous hero son with her, were accepted, spread, and veritably endorsed by the Christian church of the time, cementing the view in Christian South Europe at the time that Vila not only weren't evil, but were seen as good, benevolent, even holy spirits. Karadzic's folklore collection tells the famous tale of King Vukašin Mrnjavčević, a 14th century Serbian monarch, who was famously associated with a romance involving the beautiful Vila Ravijojla. During a hunting expedition in the mountains, Vukašin encountered Ravijojla, who was renowned for her ethereal beauty and enchanting presence. Captivated by her charm and grace, Vukašin fell deeply in love. Ravijojla, equally impressed by his noble demeanor and valor, reciprocated his affection. Despite the inherent difficulties of their union due to Ravijojla's supernatural nature, they chose to marry, symbolizing a harmonious blend of the mortal and the mystical realms. From their union emerged children with extraordinary qualities, blending both human and supernatural traits. The most renowned of their offspring was Marko Kraljevic, a legendary hero celebrated in Serbian epic poetry. Marko is famed for his immense strength and unwavering sense of justice, attributes that were believed to be inherited from his Vila mother. Even more accepted than the harmless Domavoy, the church actually went as far as to acknowledge the view that the Vila was holy, blessing the legends of great Christian heroes, like Marko, which actually equated the ancient Vila nature spirits with holiness, rather than evil. Vila, in fact, often called themselves God's sister to heroes, meaning, when not romantically involved, they could at least kind of friend zone the hero by making them a god brother instead. Though, not too bad a friend zone, in fact, given all the massive power of these beings would be put at your disposal, just as if you were family. As said, the bond of familial sisterhood among the Vila was absolutely solid and unbreakable. These were fiercely loyal beings. This concept of a blood bond with a human and a spirit, by way of the church, showcases completely how fully the Vila were accepted by the church back then. These god-sibling arrangements were never condemned as a concept by the church. They spread these legends. In fact, the church's acknowledgement of these spirits as holy in local folklore allowed for a blending of beliefs that facilitated the acceptance of Christianity without completely erasing the pre-existing cultural and spiritual landscape. This only goes to show the so-called old spirits don't have to be seen as oppositional to newer religions, and examples exist where, in fact, the two blend seamlessly. By examining these spirits through definitive sources, such as Ivanitz, Ryan's, and Karadzic's works, we gain a deeper understanding of how the Domavoy and Vila have persisted in the cultural consciousness of Eastern and Southern Europe, embodying a unique fusion of pagan and Christian elements, which, in Eastern and Southern Europe, still persist to this day. And, since they do still persist and have never died out, if you ever do happen to find yourself in Serbia, or Croatia, or somewhere around there, in South Europe, maybe better not litter in the lake, chop down an ancient oak in an oak grove, or trample on that wild, secluded meadow of wild flowers. After all, you just never know who's watching up in that cloud. Better safe than sorry, right? That just about wraps up tonight's tale from Lorehound. Follow us as we sniff out more of history's most interesting stories.
As the hound dog entered the dimly lit library, he sensed an aura of mystery surrounding the ancient scrolls. The dusty shelves towered above him as he sniffed his way through the labyrinth of books. Suddenly, he picked up a scent and followed it to a secluded corner. With bated breath, he approached the shelf and pawed at the book, revealing the hidden scroll. As he rolled it out, he knew he had discovered a treasure worth protecting at all costs.